Hello guys, and welcome back to another cold episode. On today's episode, I decided to make a little bit of a deck building challenge for myself. So there was a new structure deck that just came out a while ago with Dragonmaid-To-Order, the Dragonmaid structure deck. And I decided, hey, what could I do with just the cards from the structure deck? How good could it be, and how good of a deck could I build? Obviously, I'm not going to have access to a lot of the staples, Max C, Ash Blossom, things like that. Things that can just win you games right out. But what could I do with this structure deck? And in all honesty, I feel like I came up with a fairly decent strategy. For 1500 gems, I feel like this deck could get to Diamond. Am I willing to do that? No, I don't like Dragon Maids. But I think that you probably could. So if you're looking for a budget-friendly deck, try this. You don't even have to add staples. You can, I would suggest it, but you don't have to. So let me quickly do the card by card. We're running a whole bunch of the low-level Dragon Maids. If you don't know what Dragon Maids do, during the battle phase, they tag out for the larger ones, and that's normally how they win combat. But the main win condition is to get out their fusions with Dragon Maid Shio and Dragon Maid House. Or House Dragon Maid, I should say. Both of these are very powerful. This one is an Omni Negate, and this one is a pop as long as you return a card to the hand. Or I should say a Dragon Maid monster. Yeah. They also have standby phase effects that allow them to gain advantage as well. But, with that being said, Nurse, on normal or special, reborns a level 4 or lower Dragon Maid monster from the grave. Laundry on normal or special sends the top 3 cards to the graveyard. Kitchen adds and then sends a monster. Parlor sends a card. Chamber adds a spell or trap. And then all of these larger ones have hand effects as well as obviously the ability to tag out for their smaller counterparts. So we have Earnest, which is basically a special summon from hand. It's not really a reborn, it's just like a special summon from hand. So we're only running one of this. Its effect isn't great, and it is the lowest attack point. As well as Nudjarl. This one can discard it to shuffle away a monster in the graveyard. It can shuffle either from the opponent's or your own, but this is really good for dealing with DPE, so it's not terrible. But we don't want to brick on too many of these high-level ones, and we have a lot of ways of getting them into rotation because our monsters can special summon from hand or grave. So even if we just get them into the grave with something like a Parlor, we're good to go. So yeah, we're only running one each of these, and then 2 of the better hand effect ones with 2 Tinkek. This card is a honest-like effect. You discard it, target a Dragon Maid, it gains 2000 until the end of this turn. And then we have Lorepar, which is basically bad effect veiler. You target an effect monster, not at quick effect speed. You just discard it, target, negate the effects. It's nice, but again, we don't want to brick on too many, so we're running 2 of each of those. We have the 1 Dragon's Mirror, just in case we have access to our fusions through sending things off of Parlor, or the next card being Dragon Shrine. Dragon Shrine can just dump a dragon. That's it. And since all of our monsters are dragons, it seems pretty good. Also, Return of the Dragon Lords, it pairs very well with Dragon Shrine, given the fact that if you dump a level 8 or 7, you're able to use this in order to reborn it. And it's also protection by banishing this from the grave instead. This is actually very nice. It comes up quite a bit. Yeah, we're also running Triple Hospitality. This is the monster reborn for the archetype. It reborns them in defense, which is pretty nice. Then you can also send one of the same attribute as well. We then have Changeover. Changeover is their fusion spell. It can also return itself to the hand by bouncing one of your monsters, which is very nice. On top of it, it doesn't actually have to bounce the monster, it just needs to target it, which is crazy. You just target it for cost. And that is the entire cost, and then you get this card back to your hand. But you can fusion summon as many times as you want with this card. There's no hard ones per turn. However, there is a hard ones per turn with adding it back to hand. So if you wanted to play more of this card, you could, and you could just fusion summon it as long as you have the materials, which does come up. However, I'm only playing 2 because if you don't want to brick on it, you do need the materials. But we definitely want to be playing more than 1, because if it ends up getting banished or negated or something like that, having a second one is very nice. We have 1 Send-Off. This is more so kind of insurance against things like Imperm or Effect Veiler. You basically just bounce and trade out one of your monsters with one from your hand. So if you like normal Chamber, they chain Imperm, and then you activate this, and you return the Chamber, you can special summon out a Kitchen or a Parlor, or even one of your larger monsters. We have Guard Dragon Cataclysm as the only generic trap that we're playing. This card's actually very crazy. Tribute for cost, target 2 cards on the field for cost, and then destroy them. It's basically just better Ballista Squad. That's it. Also can technically dodge other effects such as Imperm and the like, so there you go. Very solid. We also have triple Dragonmaid Tidying. You bounce a card and it's a reborn by banishing it from the grave. Absolutely crazy. And then 2 downtime. This card can either search cards or bounce spells and traps your opponent controls by bouncing cards you control. Very nice overall. But yeah, overall we're trying to summon out House and Shio, and yeah, that's basically our plan. Sometimes we go into a Hieratic Seal. That's not really that often, but this is also very nice in the deck. As for the other 2, they're just here. We never use them. Anyway, let's hop into those replays and show you how this deck performs. Before we get on to the rest of the video, did you know that 70% of the people who watch my content aren't subscribed? If you end up liking the content, consider subscribing. You can always unsubscribe later if you end up not liking it. Anyway, let's get on to the rest of the video. Alright, so here we are going first, and we drew a fairly decent hand. Drawing Kitchen and a card to discard off of it is pretty nice, but we also drew Dragon Shrine, so we are going to go for the Dragon Shrine and pitch the Tinkek just to get it into rotation. Out comes the Effect Veiler. Not a lot we can do about that. Sure, our effect is negated. But we also do have the Cataclysm, which is very nice, so we can pop 2 cards if we need to. But we're going to try and wait for the battle phase so that we can get the Kitchen back into rotation and actually use it to search out cards. But out comes the Despia Theater here, and they drew quite possibly one of the best hands in this deck. A Hand Trap and Tragedy, Edge Imp Chain, and Theater. That's absolutely crazy. So out comes the Masquerade. They're going to go for the Tragedy as well as the Edge Imp Chain. They're going to search the Frightful Patchwork and the Dramaturg. They're going to go for the Frightful Patchwork. They're going to search up Polymerization as well as the Edge Imp Chain. They're going to activate their Polymerization in order to fuse away for their Despian Q with their Dramaturg as well as the Edge Imp Chain. They're going to go for the Dramaturg effect in order to special summon itself back, as well as activate the Q effect to put us to 0. Now, this actually isn't all that big of a deal, given the fact that we can just bounce, so yeah, we're just gonna tag out here. At the start of the damage step, we're just gonna later. They activate their Maxi. We're only summoning once, so it's not that big of a deal, but sure, you do you, boo. Anyway, we're going to go for the Tinkek in our graveyard, and they're going to attack with their Dramaturg. Now, I do have to actually use our Cataclysm here, because I wouldn't die, but a lot of damage would be done, and we wouldn't really have access to our Cataclysm. So I'm actually going to pop the Field Spell and their Dramaturg here, reason being, yes, I do take a lot of damage with Masquerade up, which is problematic, but I literally have to deal with that Theater, and alright, out comes Theater again. But had I popped the Dramaturg and a Fusion, they would have just been able to float, or bring back the Fusion as well. So yeah, I just had to deal with Theater there. Anyway, now it is our turn. So I'm going to normal summon the Kitchen and just proceed to the battle phase without using the effect, because I need to deal with this Masquerade, otherwise we only get 2 activations of card effects, which we can't really utilize all that well. So we're just going to punch in with the Tinkek and then tag out during the end of the battle phase to go for the Kitchen here. And yeah, so we're going to go for Kitchen, search out the... Yeah, search out the Chamber, and then we are going to pitch the Lorpar. Then we're going to go for the Shrine and dump Ernest, and then reborn it with our Return of the Dragon Lords. And then we are going to link all of those away for a Hieratic Seal of the Heavenly Spheres. Yeah, this is just the best option because it can tribute itself to bring back one of our, or to bring out one of our monsters, which is very, very nice. So I'm going to immediately in the draw phase deal with the monster, the Q, and then bring out a Chamber to search out the Changeover. Out comes Aluber. They are going to search out their Branded Opening, and then they are going to activate their Branded Opening, pitching the Polymerization that they had. Now, I know what you're saying. Why didn't you keep the seals around just so that you could bounce something like the Despia Theater or what have you? Well, in all reality, I needed a good way to deal with Q, otherwise they would have kept getting an advantage. So dealing with the Q is very good there. Sure, they would still be able to fusion summon. I mean, here they searched out the Aluber, and they already have Tragedy Engrave. So no matter what, they have access to Theater. So yeah, dealing with the Theater there doesn't do anything. Anyway, so they're going to grab their Dramaturg and out comes the Masquerade. Again, we have one activation to deal with the Masquerade, but luckily, we should be fine. So they go to the battle phase, and we are going to tag out for the Lorepar. They're going to attack in, deal 300 damage, but we keep our Lorepar around, which means their Masquerade cannot attack in and deal that lethal damage. Thank you, Return of the Dragon Lords. So at this point, we just proceed to battle. We can't tag out or anything like that. We can deal with the Masquerade, and we should be fine here. Aluber comes out. They're going to negate the effects of the Lorepar, which does suck, because now we can't tag out and get extra advantage off of the kitchen or the chamber, but that's okay. We're going to go for the chamber here, and we are going to go for the tidying. And then we're going to activate our changeover in order to use the Lorepar and the kitchen to go for Shion. Or Shio. I don't know how to say that name. They're going to bring out their Masquerade. That's fine, like I don't care. But we are going to bounce our chamber here to add back the changeover and do it again! Yes! This is not a once per turn. I think I already mentioned that, but yeah, there we go. Out comes the house. Yes, I'm going for the house here because Shio is a hard once per turn on its Omni Negate. But we are going to, in the standby phase, bring out the chamber. Then we are going to search out our hospitality to add additional follow-up. And we are going to target the chamber then to bring out the kitchen. And then kitchen is going to add the parlor and dump it. We do want the Tinkek in our hand just in case we need it. Anyway, out comes the Predaplant Verte Anaconda, and we are going to activate our tidying to bounce the Predaplant. I can't deal with the super polymerization here, like I just die if they super poly me. So there's that. Anyway, our house is going to pop the Dramaturg, and then they are going to attempt to bring back their fusion, to the which we will negate their monster. They're going to go to battle phase, and quick tip, if you're playing against Dragon Maid, don't go to battle. Don't go to battle, just don't do it. Just avoid going to battle as much as you can. Yeah, it really does cut them off of a lot of resources, so there you go. Just avoid going to battle unless you know that you can kill them. Anyway, we're going to deal with their monster by popping with both of the houses. They're going to go to the end of the battle phase, and we are just going to, once again, pop their monster with the other house, because, yes, this is not a hard once per turn to destroy cards. So yeah, there you go. We draw a changeover for a turn, and at this point, we basically have lethal. During the standby phase, we are going to bring back the chamber. Chamber is going to search tidying. Then we are going to bring back the parlor. Parlor is going to send a downtime, because why not? We're going to go for the changeover to bounce a card so that we can deal with this face down. And it is Celestial. There we go. We're going to go for the changeover to grab an Omni Negate onto our side of the field as well. We're going to go to the battle phase, and we're going to tag out for the Lorepar, just the one, and then we will proceed to battle. And yeah, good game. Alright, so here we are once again going first. This deck does have a massive issue going second, so as long as you can go first, you might be okay. But yeah. Anyway, we are going to start off with Chamber in order to search out the changeover, and they are going to maxi our changeover here on the fusion summon. Now that does hurt, but I wasn't really going to hospitality this turn anyway, so it's not that big of a deal. We're just going to set the Cataclysm and pass. They're going to draw their one card, and during the standby phase, we're going to bring out the chamber to search out our tidying. So now we have a target for our Cataclysm. They're going to go and banish, I believe, 3 to reveal the top 3 cards, and they reveal a Super Polymerization. Oh no! That's not good. So I'm going to try and get this chamber off of my field as soon as possible for our Cataclysm, because I don't want 2 materials for them to actually use with the Super Poly. So yeah, if we get the Dark off of the field, we might be okay. But we are playing against Shaddoll, so that Super Poly is probably live no matter what. Anyway, I'm going to use this negate on the Magical Meltdown here because, again, they don't really have a target for their Super Poly at the moment, but as soon as something comes down, they do have a target, and so I wanted to get this Shio off of the field and just, like, negate something at the very least, get that value out of it, and, yeah. Also, I wouldn't have been able to negate any of their fusion spells had this been around, so there you go. We're going to bring out the house here, and then they go for the El Shaddoll fusion. They're going to fuse for an Apkalone, and Apkalone effect is going to target the house to negate its effects. They're going to dump with Squamata and special the Hedgehog off of the Wendy. They're going to dump their Dragon here. So at this point, this is a great time for me to just activate the Cataclysm. We're going to actually tribute off our negated house, just because Chamber can tag out, and we can gain that advantage off of the Chamber by returning it to the hand. So that's what we're going to end up wanting to do here. But they actually searched out all of the cards that, I should say, we have perfect knowledge of what we're playing against. We know that they have a Super Polymerization, but they don't have any targets to discard. We know that they have a Schism because they searched it off of the App Cologne. Sorry, I know I speak fast. Let me slow down. And then we know that they have an aerial set right here, which can bring back one of their banished monsters that they can banish off of their Schism. So that's what we're working with. We have Hospitality, Tidying, Tinkek in our hand, and Chamber on our field. Not the greatest, but we're not dead. We draw Dragon Shrine, which is pretty good. So we're going to go for the Dragon Shrine here, and we are going to dump Parlor to get that into rotation. We are then going to proceed with the Changeover in order to add the Chamber back to our hand. We're going to go for the Chamber here, to which they will chain their Schism. And Schism is going to allow them to banish 2, but more importantly, it gets them the fusion that they can then use to send our monster to the grave. So away goes our Chamber, and we only get the one summon, or the one special, I should say, off of the window. So we're going to special summon out the Parlor, and then Parlor is going to dump a Tidying to the graveyard, and we will set our Tidying. Now, one thing I didn't know prior to playing this was that Tidying's effect is a hard once per turn to use one of its effects. However, it has 2 effects. It has a Graveyard Banish effect, as well as the effect to bounce a card. So, I didn't know this. I thought it was you could only use each effect once per turn, not one effect once per turn. So, I end up making a big mistake here, thinking that I can do that. So first and foremost, my opponent is going to go. They are going to tribute off their Shaddoll Winda in order to go for Beast. Here, I'm like, oh, now is a great time, while the Winda is not on the field, to get a free special summon using my Tidying. Not realizing that Tidying here is now no longer active. So this is a big mistake for me. I could have bounced the Schism here as well in the standby phase just to deal with it. Anyway, we go for the Tidying again off of our Chamber here. They're going to go for the Schism to go for App Cologne. They are going to send away our Chamber, and then they are going to negate our Parlor. So, whoops. Anyway, they're going to also add their Wendy to their field off of the Aerial. Then they're going to attack and deal 1,000 damage. App Cologne can't attack directly, so that's why they didn't. They could have done a little bit more damage if they had attacked with the App Cologne, Beast, and then Aerial. But they make the Gravity Controller, and they are going to add back to their hand the Dragon, and then send it to the graveyard in order to pop our Tidying. So there's that. However, we still have Changeover, the Hospitality, and the Tidying. But in the draw phase, I'm going to activate the Tidying because, I mean, this card's not set. It's not going to activate its first effect anyway, so who cares? So we're going to grab back our Parlor in order to send the Airness here. And then we're going to go for Changeover in order to go for the Shio. Now, what they could have done is they could have activated the Schism here on the activation of my Changeover in order to get a construct or whatever it is that they might want to have on their field prior to me summoning out the Shio, and then they wouldn't have had a negate to deal with. However, they do still have their Super Polymerization, so they're going to Super Poly away the Shio and one of their Aerials, or sorry, their Shaddolls. They're going to send away their Aerial, and out comes the Construct. So they're going to banish 3 from our graveyard due to the effect of Aerial, and then they're going to send 1 with Construct. Now, they make a bad choice. They do hit a good card here with the Changeover, but our Dragons Engrave, the Shio, and the House aren't actually really doing anything. So they should have banished the Parlor and the Chamber. These 2 would have cut me off of the low levels, but obviously they don't know the contents of my hand. I think they know Tidying, and that's it. So I could have another low level. So they don't know that, but in all honesty, yeah, just banish the low levels. That would have been better. They don't, and so we're still able to play. We're going to go for the return here to bring back the Tinkek, and they are going to activate their Schism right here. Now, they go for the Winda here, which is interesting, because I can just go Tinkek and then walk right over their Winda, and now that is a waste. Now they don't have a Winda, and they just wasted an extra deck slot, which actually does come up quite often in Shaddolls. They're going to add back to their hand, I believe they added the Incarnation, and now we can go for our Chamber off of our Hospitality to search for the second Changeover. Now, we've already activated Changeover this turn, but you can Fusion Summon as many times as you want, so let's do it again. Out comes Shio, and we are going to set the Tidying and pass. So now we have a Negate and a Bounce, thanks to Shio being able to bring back monsters. So During the standby phase, before they can activate the Schism again, I am going to bring back the Parlor and then bounce with the Tidying in order to deal with the Schism so that they can't activate it again. Anyway, they're going to link off into Predapine Verite Anaconda, and I do know that this is the card that I have to negate. Everything else, not so much. This card in particular is the one that I need to deal with because I can't deal with a Super Poly on my Shio. So I'm going to just focus on negating that. They're going to just add a whole bunch of cards and send cards and stuff like that. But out comes the super polymerization. They max see me again for 1, but you know, hey, what are you going to do? And we're going to tag out for House here. My opponent attacks in with the Construct, activates the effect, and we're going to protect with the return, and then they crash in and deal 200 to themselves. They're going to set 3 and pass, and now it is our turn. At this point, I'm actually in the driver's seat. I should be winning this duel. We know one of their set cards is Schism. We know most likely the other one is in Incarnation, because they did add that back off of their, what was it, the Shaddoll Winda? I think it was the Winda. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. We're going to normal summon the Parlor. Parlor effect is going to activate. They are going to bring out their App Cologne. Now, App Cologne is a little bit difficult for us to deal with, given the fact that it says this right here cannot be destroyed by battle. So, we have to find another way to deal with it, either through another house or through a Heavenly Seals. Those are basically our only two ways to deal with something that cannot be destroyed by battle. Anyway, we're going to banish the Tidying to summon out the Nurse. Nurse effect is going to summon out the Chamber, and then Chamber is going to search Downtime so that we can bounce the back row if we need to. Then we are going to bounce the Chamber to add the Changeover, and then we will go for a Shio. We're going to proceed to the battle phase. We're going to tag out with the Nurse into a Nudjarl, and then we are going to tag out with the Parlor into a Tinket. We're just going to attack into everything that can be destroyed. So it's the Hedgehog. They're going to search out the Shaddoll Fusion, and then we are going to attack into this last one, which is an Aerial, which is going to bring back another App Cologne. So 2 App Colognes, kind of difficult to deal with, but again, as long as we have House or Dragon or Heavenly Seals, we should be fine. We're going to search out the laundry off of our kitchen here and send the Nudjarl to the graveyard. We're going to set the downtime and pass the turn. In the draw phase, we're going to flip the downtime in order to bounce the Nurse and bounce their Schism that we, again, know is set. At this point, my opponent realizes that they have lost this game because they don't have anything to deal with my monsters, and they surrender. So, all in all, this deck seems fairly decent. In all honesty, not having access to your staples and stuff like that makes the deck very good at being able to grind. Basically, every draw that you have is going to get you something in your engine, whether it's a Send, a Reborn, or just a normal summon that you can utilize to get more advantage. So, it really does help when you can slow the game down with things like your Guard Dragon Cataclysm or a Tidying, just to kind of help you survive. Sure, again, you're not going to win against something like a Hulk Dawn combo that goes like 15 negates, and you just kind of stare at the board and go, okay. But it is able to grind with a lot of the more heavy grind decks. Shaddoll is best known for having just access to constant summons off of things like Schism, the Shaddoll Fusion, being able to recur all of their spells constantly with their fusions. So there's a lot that that deck can do, and we outgrinded them, right? Just because we have so many engine pieces for ourselves. And same with Despia, right? So yeah, these weren't exactly the top tier decks, but I don't expect that to happen. I do think that this deck, again, can get to Diamond, so give it a try. I'm not a big fan of this deck. I didn't really have a great time playing it, but if you want to try this, I would highly suggest it. 1,500 gems for a deck that could probably get you to Diamond easily. Yeah, go ahead. Anyway, that's going to be it for this episode. I hope that you guys did indeed enjoy. If you did, a like is very much appreciated. And if you want to check out more content like this, as well as more Yu-Gi-Oh!, just be sure to subscribe. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. And remember to always stay frosty. Bye-bye.